Hello, my name is Melody, and today I just wanted to do a flip-through video of my Inktober 2018 sketches. I did it in the same sketchbook as my 2017 sketches, and I do have a flip-through video of that if you want to check it out and see how much my drawing has improved in the past year. So this year I decided I was going to do something a little bit different. Since I'm participating in NaNoWriMo this month, today's November 3rd, I believe, I decided for Inktober I was going to draw certain aspects of my story world. Except for the first drawing, this is just a standalone, but the other 30 sketches are from my story, my world building, and as we go through each drawing I'll try to explain a little bit about the characters, the settings, and everything. So diving right in, day one was poisonous, and as I said, this is a standalone. It's just purely a Halloween type of drawing. I just wanted to draw a skull that was multicolored and a poison apple in front, so this is what I came up with for day one. Day two was tranquil, and now we're beginning the sketches of my story world. So for day two, this is my concept art of the tribal lands in one region of my story. The color scheme doesn't necessarily reflect how it actually is. I was just playing around with the colors and seeing what contrasted and looked really cool. So this is the environment I came up with for tranquil, just a really tranquil scene, because this is located in a region that is primarily wasteland after a big nuclear war. This is one of the last regions that has vegetation and clean water and such. So that's what I had for tranquil. Day three was roasted, and this is an individual who is undergoing a metamorphosis after catching a mutant virus. So here he's been caught by one of the antagonistic forces. He's been chained up, certain parts of him have been dismembered, and he's being burned alive. So I'm definitely not writing a young adult story. This is a story that is mostly retro-futuristic science fiction for, college age and up. But yeah, so this is what I had for roasted. So day four was spell, and this is a drawing of an ancient druid. In my story world, druids no longer exist. They vanished mysteriously about a century ago. No one knows what happened. They left no trace after their disappearance. And they were said to have possessed the ability to shapeshift into 4 different animal species. Those were birds, reptiles, wolves, and wild cats. So even though it's primarily a science fiction story, there are some phantasmal, some fantasy elements peppered in, and this is one of them. And next, day 5 was chicken, and this is a mutated chicken I had a lot of fun designing. Since there was a nuclear war, almost all animals were either completely wiped out or mutated. And this is one of the chickens that ended up mutated. It has weird growths along its face. It actually has open wounds that never heal. So poor thing is not having a great existence post-war. Day 6 was drooling, and this is a 4th generation android that has been fitted with liquid modules to begin to simulate human functions such as salivating, and here we have him drooling since the modules appear to be working. My story does deal a lot with artificial intelligence, the ethics thereof, and pretty much just humans playing God, and so this is one of them. Androids are mostly manufactured by the Tellurian Corporation, and they've been conducting research such as this to begin to phase androids into human society. Day 7 was exhausted, and this is a character that does not appear in my story world. She's just referred to because this takes place a long time before the story begins. But this character is a foreman of these factory slums in the capital region. And here she's taking a little cigarette break. She does have a lot of history that will be alleged to. Here you can see she has a steampunk arm since she lost her real arm a couple of years before this. But yeah, being foreman of the factory slums is an exhausting position, so this is what I drew for that day. Day 8 was Star, and this is another one that I was just getting really creative with as far as the color scheme. This is a character that appears in a story, but she definitely does not look like this. She looks like a regular person. But this character was raised in an underground bunker, and she always had dreams of becoming a famous, nationally known singer. So this is just a surreal concept of what she has in mind for her own future. Day 9 was Precious. And here we're going back to the whole cyberpunk theme. I would say one of the most precious things a person can have is their sense of self and their identity. And in this type of world, it's possible where if you're terminally ill you can upload your consciousness into a digital memory chip. So in a way, you kind of live on, at least your memories and your personality do. This is a person who is uploading his consciousness now since he has stage 4 cancer. This character, as a human, does not appear in a story, but his android version does. So this scene takes place before the story begins, and during the story, the reader meets his android version. Day 10 was flowing, and one of the antagonistic forces in my story world is the Imperium, the Scarab Imperium, the poster child of a totalitarian, savage, barbaric regime, since the area they live in is very much the wasteland, where it's every man for himself, and this is one of those factions that band together specifically to take over, conquer other people. Something they'd like to do is they capture wasteland citizens and then just do unspeakable horrid acts to them. This is a pile of burned corpses with the flag planted on top and the blood flowing down. Day 11 was cruel, and although these look like anthropomorphic animals, in this story they are called chimeras, and they're descended from humans who are supernaturally infused with animal DNA through alchemy. So where they're from, it's more of a steampunk type region, whereas this is more atom punk, and the cyborg and android stuff is more cyberpunk. And chimeras were created specifically to fight in the war, so they were humans who had volunteered to go through that whole transformative process. Decades later, the new generation of humans comes in, and they decide to persecute the chimeras, the modern day chimeras. These ones are descended from the originals, and they live in nomadic groups, so they're always on the move since humans tend to hunt them down. And you can see here, they're under attack right now. But yeah, it's not a great existence being a chimera in this world. And something to note about them is that they are directly connected to the druids that disappeared. If you see here, we have a feline, a canine, a reptile, and an avian. And here we have a canine, a feline, a reptile, and an avian. So a bit of a clue as far as the connection between chimeras and the disappeared druids. Day 12 was whale, and again, this color scheme doesn't really reflect how it is in the story, but I mentioned before that most animal species either went extinct or became mutated after the war, but there are rumors that certain coastlines have tribes of people that actually raise and house unmutated animals and are keeping them from the general public, not necessarily to save and preserve them, but to serve their own interests. So this is what I had for whale, just coming. Let's pretend that this water is deep enough for the whale to be doing that. I didn't think that through when I was finishing this section here. But yeah, that's what I had for whale. Day 13 was guarded, and this is another faction in the wastelands. They live in the compound, which is an old derelict theme park they took over. But these people are mostly the mutants that we saw here on day 3. The mutants that haven't been caught by marauders and raiders and such, they have banded together to protect themselves in this fortified area. And their primary mission is to take old world tech and revitalize it. So this is an old world robot that they restored to help patrol and guard their front gate. So this is what I had for guarded. Day 14 was clock, and this is in the steampunk region. This takes a lot of inspiration from the Winchester Mystery House. This clock tower, or clock palace rather, was built on the order of a noblewoman whose house actually got massacred after this was built. But the way she wanted it designed was to confuse anyone who walked in. Certain doors lead to nowhere, certain doors lead to steep drop-offs. So I just wanted to play around with some architectural elements for day 14. Day 15 was week, and this is back in the Adapunk region, the wastelands. This is a person who grew up in the bunker system, and as a result of growing up in such a sterile environment, when they go out into the wasteland, which has a lot of radiation, germs, pathogens, and everything, their immune systems can't handle it. So they have to wear special masks, the gas masks. Some have to wear hazmat suits, but yeah, you can see the sky here is green with lingering radiation, even though it's been about a century after that nuclear war. But this is what I had for a week because your immune systems are unfortunately weak compared to citizens who live outside of the bunker system. Day 16 was Angular. This is in the cyberpunk region. And I just wanted to draw a vehicle that was kind of sci-fi-ish and cyberpunky. So for Angular, I drew a vehicle that had a lot more angles compared to vehicles you would see in the steampunk and atompunk regions. So this is what I had for Angular. Day 17 was Swollen. And this is a reptile chimera who has become feral. A serious degenerative issue with chimeras is that most of them later in life tend to go feral. And that raises a lot of moral, ethical questions about whether or not they are animals at that point, even though they were descended from humans. But this is what happens when you're a chimera who has become feral. You start to mutate, kind of like the metamorphosed mutants do, very similar, but you gain more bulk, more muscle, your mental capacity decreases as far as your intellect and your sense of self. So that's why it raises the question, are they animals at this point? Are they still people who can come back from this? So this is a reptilian chimera, and you see the difference. Here is a regular one, normal, healthy reptilian chimera, and this is what happens if he goes feral. Day 18 was Bottle, and this is a bottle terrarium that is one of the restorative research projects by scientists in the northern region of the wasteland. The northern region is the capital region where they still have some semblance of civilization. And they have scientists there that are trying to come up with ways to restore the ecosystem of the radiated wasteland. So this is an example of one of their projects. Day 19 was Scorched, and this is what in-game characters refer to as the Wicker Golem. This is an entity that patrols the abandoned settlements, and there's speculation among the characters that this might be one of the reasons the druids disappeared under mysterious circumstances. It's just this creepy supernatural entity that has pretty much taken over their abandoned settlements, just patrols the area in the woods. Looking creepy as hell. But the legend goes that this entity came about from the druids' last human sacrifice, which they sacrificed in place of an effigy. If you know anything about Celtic druids and Wickermen, they burned effigies as a sacrifice to their deities. And the druids in here actually did human sacrifices instead of wicker sacrifices. So it's said that this was born from their last human sacrifice that may have wiped them out. Okay, number 20 was Breakable. This is probably the drawing I like the least. Pretty much nothing came out as I had hoped, but the idea behind this is a psionic mutant, and it's just concept art. It's not just a floating head. But the mutants have the two strains, the metamorphosed strain where they transform physically, and the psionic strain where they gain psionic powers, but it shortens their lifespan and makes them more susceptible to mental shutdowns. So upside, they get telekinetic psychic type powers. Downside, they die earlier. And this is an example of what they call the mind break. This is not actually what it looks like when it happens. But the mind break is when a psionic mutant just completely shuts down, because in the story world, the human body is not designed to house this level of psionic aptitude. So this is what I had for Breakable. Day 21 was Drain. And this is a member of the Duskbane Coven of Witches. They're one of those factions where you're not sure whether they're good or bad. It depends on the circumstances under which you meet them, if you need something from them, or if they could use something from you. For Drain, this is showing a witch that is draining the life force of a hapless individual. So in that person's case, they'd probably say these are chaotic villains. Day 22 is Expensive. This is a scepter that was commissioned by the imperial family of the cyberpunk region. The cyberpunk region is ruled by an empire and a republic, and the imperial family is one of the wealthiest in the world, so they commissioned a very expensive scepter as their heirloom. Day 23 was Muddy, and this is a puppet that has been discarded and is in the dirt. There were some tall tales going around that poltergeists and other malevolent spirits were able to inhabit the bodies of dolls, mannequins, puppets. So ventriloquist puppeteers, they would discard their dolls en masse. And this is one of them that was dug out from the dirt in disturbing condition. And honestly, I just wanted to draw something creepy. Day 24 was Chop, and this is an executioner that is employed by some of the noble houses of the steampunk region. And although it is science fiction and more futuristic, some of the houses dabble in old world execution techniques. So this is what I had for Chop. Day 25 was Prickly, and this is another small faction that roams the woods. These are called Flower Children, and they believe in scarring and mutilating their own faces with thorns as a tribute to their nature-based deities. So we have a member here who is wearing a crown of roses and scraping her face with thorns. Day 26 was Stretch, and this is my favorite drawing I've done this year. This is actually the best human face I've ever drawn. I'm not very good at human faces, I never have been, but I'm slowly working on getting better. But this is a high-ranking member of the coastal bands that house the whales. So if you see this tiki hut, they're very coastal region type people, and she is one of the high-ranking individuals there, and her position is called the Siren. And a woman that has been selected to become the Siren typically has her earlobe stretched to accommodate the ornamental plates that are going to go in to show that she's a woman of high stature in her society. Day 27 was Thunder. And this is supposed to be a type of ecodome that's in one region of the cyberpunk nation, but it kind of turned out looking like a planet about to collide with another planet. It's supposed to just show this cool thunderstorm that has a bit of a borealis effect, and it results in a phenomenon that citizens call falling stars, because it looks like the rain are stars that are falling and hitting the ground. So that's what I had for Thunder. Day 28 was Gift, and this is a bit of a mixed sketch. We have here a clone, a failed human clone. It says here Mama, because it is a failed human clone child. It's number 38, it's alive, and the people who created it are going to terminate it, unfortunately. We have the scientists here on the side. This refers to the imperial family, the ones that commissioned that expensive scepter as their heirloom. It's that same family. And it's only rumored among the public that the youngest son, the youngest imperial prince, had passed away. And so the empress reached out and had geneticists attempt to clone him. But as you can see here, they have failed several times. This is number 38. But yeah, this is another failed clone that was supposed to be a gift for the empress, but unfortunately did not work out. Day 29 was Double, and this is just a scenery sketch. The world in which all these nations are located has 2 moons, and so those 2 moons, of course, affects the tides, the seasons, the length of seasons, the temperatures, the organic life that's there. So I just wanted to sketch that out and show off the double moons. Day 30 was Jolt, and this is showing the bond that a human can actually have with an android. It has that electric jolt between their fingers, and by the time the story begins, certain androids have begun to gain self-awareness and sentience, and so there are groups of people who believe that they should not be decommissioned because at that point they have transcended their machine status and should be integrated into society along with humans. So we have here a representation of those humans who want to build a society that's accepting to both organics and synthetics alike. And then day 31, final drawing, was Slice. And this shows a slice of what the wasteland region used to be. Here on the sides we see the irradiated version, the one after the war. So here we have like the derelict buildings, everything is dead, water's dried up. And then in the middle of the slice that shows its past is how it was when it was still kind of an atomic age type utopia before it became atom punk. We have the buildings that are intact, flying cars, like very atomic age in design. We have the buildings here and water up front. So yes, these were my Inktober 2018 drawings. If you have any questions or want to know anything else about my drawings or even my story world, NaNoWriMo has started already. I've already begun writing the story. And these drawings encompass the entire series. It's not actually just this first book I'm working on. It's an entire world that will hopefully become a series. But yes, if you'd like to know anything else, leave it in the comments, let me know. But other than that, thank you for watching my Inktober 2018 flip through.